In a stunning twist of misidentification, a routine shopping trip turned into a national security fiasco when the director of the CIA found herself staring down the barrel of an LAPD officer's gun in one of America's most exclusive shopping districts, all because of a false tip that would derail multiple careers and expose dangerous flaws in law enforcement protocols. The gleaming marble floors of Bergdorf's on Rodeo Drive reflected the afternoon sun as CIA Director Catherine Hayes browsed through the designer racks. It was a rare moment of normalcy for one of the most powerful figures in American intelligence. Her two plainclothes security officers maintained a discreet distance, their earpieces barely visible as they scanned the luxury boutique. What began as a peaceful shopping expedition quickly descended into chaos when three LAPD officers burst through the front doors, weapons drawn. The lead officer, James Martinez, had received an anonymous tip about a suspicious person matching Hayes' description. In the heat of the moment, he failed to notice the telltale signs of her security detail or consider the unlikelihood of a threat in such a high-end location. LAPD, everyone on the ground. Martinez's voice echoed through the store, sending shoppers scrambling for cover. Director Hayes remained remarkably calm, slowly raising her hands while attempting to explain her identity. The situation escalated when Officer Chen spotted her security detail reaching for their credentials, mistaking them for hostile armed individuals. The immediate aftermath of the Rodeo Drive incident unfolded like a political earthquake, sending shockwaves through multiple levels of government and law enforcement. Within minutes of Director Hayes' identification being confirmed, the boutique transformed into a nexus of frantic activity as local and federal officials scrambled to contain what was rapidly becoming a national security embarrassment. Security camera footage from the store's high-definition system painted a damning picture. The crystal-clear video showed Director Hayes, one of America's most senior intelligence officials, being forced to kneel on the marble floor with her hands behind her head. Her two highly trained security officers, professionals with decades of experience protecting government officials, were seen being disarmed and handcuffed. The footage, which would later become the subject of multiple internal investigations, captured every excruciating second of the 17-minute ordeal. At LAPD headquarters, Captain Sarah Rodriguez received the call that every law enforcement commander dreads. Her face visibly paled as she listened to the details, immediately recognizing the magnitude of the situation. Within an hour, she had assembled a crisis management team in the department's main conference room. The scene was chaos. Phones ringing constantly, senior officers rushing in and out, and legal advisors huddled in corners discussing potential ramifications. The media response was swift and merciless. Despite attempts to control the narrative, someone in the store had managed to capture partial footage on their phone. By early evening, the clip had gone viral, appearing on every major news network and social media platform. Headlines range from the factual CIA director detained in Beverly Hills shopping incident to the more sensational intelligence chief held at gunpoint, LAPD's massive mistake. The political fallout reached Washington within hours. The White House Chief of Staff was awakened from a late afternoon nap to handle calls from concerned congressional leaders. The Senate Intelligence Committee chairman demanded an immediate briefing, while the House Oversight Committee announced plans for hearings on law enforcement protocols regarding government officials. Officer Martinez, the lead officer in the incident, found himself at the center of a growing storm. His 20-year career, previously marked by commendations and clean performance reviews, now hung by a thread. As he sat in Captain Rodriguez's office, his service weapon and badge already surrendered, the weight of his actions began to sink in. The department placed him on immediate administrative leave, standard procedure that felt like a punch to the gut for a man who had dedicated his life to law enforcement. Meanwhile, the CIA's Los Angeles field office became command central for damage control. Senior agency officials worked through the night, coordinating with the director's security detail to compile a minute-by-minute account of the incident. The agency's relationship with local law enforcement had always been complex, but this incident threatened to create lasting damage that could impact future operations. Director Hayes herself maintained remarkable composure throughout the ordeal. After being released and having her credentials verified, she insisted on meeting with the LAPD chief of police. In a brief but tense conversation, she emphasized the need for accountability while acknowledging the difficult position of officers working in an era of heightened security concerns. Her measured response would later prove crucial in preventing the incident from escalating into an all-out war between federal and local law enforcement agencies. The boutique's staff and other shoppers were not forgotten in the chaos. The store manager, recognizing the potential trauma of the event, arranged for counseling services to be available for employees. Several customers who had witnessed the incident were interviewed by both LAPD Internal Affairs and federal agents, their statements adding to the growing pile of evidence that would need to be reviewed. As the first 24 hours after the incident drew to a close, one thing became crystal clear to everyone involved. This was more than just a case of mistaken identity. It was a serious breach of protocol that exposed dangerous gaps in the relationship between local law enforcement and federal officials. The aftermath would continue to reverberate through the halls of power, leading to changes that would affect law enforcement procedures across the nation. The Internal Affairs investigation into the Rodeo Drive incident began within hours of the confrontation. Detective Sarah Chen, a veteran investigator with LAPD's Professional Standards Bureau, was assigned to lead the case. Her team's first priority was collecting surveillance footage from not just Bergdorf's, but every business within a 3-block radius. The meticulous review of this footage would later prove crucial in unraveling a broader conspiracy. As detectives dug deeper into the anonymous tip that triggered the incident, they discovered a disturbing pattern. Over the past 6 months, similar calls had targeted judges, entertainment executives, and foreign diplomats shopping in Beverly Hills and West Hollywood. Each call followed the same template: a concerned citizen reporting suspicious behavior, with just enough specific details to sound credible. The difference this time was that Officer Martinez had acted more aggressively than his counterparts in previous incidents. The breakthrough came when cybercrime specialists traced the calls to a sophisticated network of burner phones. Each device had been purchased with cash at different locations across Los Angeles County, but surveillance footage from one convenience store captured a clear image of the buyer. The suspect, later identified as former private security contractor Marcus Reynolds, had a history of attempting to expose what he perceived as security weaknesses and high-profile protection details. The investigation also revealed serious procedural failures within the LAPD's dispatch system. The standard protocol required dispatchers to cross-reference tips about suspicious persons against a database of protected government officials' scheduled movements. This database, maintained in cooperation with federal agencies, had Director Hayes' shopping trip clearly logged. However, the dispatcher handling Reynolds' call had skipped this crucial step, assuming the tip's specific details meant it had already been verified. Perhaps most concerning was the discovery that Reynolds had extensively studied the routines of various security details. He knew that Director Hayes' protective team maintained a deliberately low profile during personal outings, making them less obvious to casual observers. This knowledge allowed him to craft a tip that would seem more plausible to responding officers who wouldn't immediately expect to encounter federal agents in a retail setting. The investigation expanded beyond Los Angeles as federal agencies became involved. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit was brought in to assess Reynolds' potential connections to foreign intelligence services or domestic extremist groups. While these connections proved unfounded, their analysis suggested Reynolds was part of a growing movement of self-styled security consultants who used increasingly aggressive methods to expose what they viewed as vulnerabilities in VIP protection protocols. As the investigation concluded its third week, investigators had compiled a comprehensive picture of systematic failures and unexpected vulnerabilities. The incident had exposed not just procedural gaps in law enforcement response protocols, but also the broader challenges of protecting high-ranking officials in an era of unprecedented information sharing and surveillance capabilities. The final report would recommend sweeping changes to how law enforcement agencies verified tips and coordinated responses to suspicious person reports, particularly in areas frequented by government officials. The resolution of the Rodeo Drive incident unfolded across multiple levels, touching every aspect of law enforcement and intelligence community protocols. Officer James Martinez's disciplinary hearing became the catalyst for sweeping changes that would reshape department policies nationwide. During closed-door sessions at LAPD headquarters, Martinez faced the police commission with remarkable candor. His testimony revealed the immense pressure officers felt to respond quickly to potential threats in the post-9/11 era. Rather than making excuses, he acknowledged his failure to follow verification protocols, turning his experience into a powerful cautionary tale. The commission, influenced by Director Hayes' own recommendations, opted for a 3-month suspension rather than termination, coupled with mandatory advanced training in VIP recognition and security protocols. The incident sparked a comprehensive overhaul of the LAPD's response procedures. New guidelines required officers to conduct rapid but thorough verification of tips involving upscale areas known to be frequented by government officials and diplomats. The department established a dedicated hotline connecting patrol officers directly to a federal liaison office, providing real-time verification of government officials' credentials. This system would later be adopted by major police departments across the country. Director Hayes' handling of the aftermath proved masterful. Rather than pursuing punitive measures, she saw an opportunity to bridge the gap between federal and local law enforcement. She personally worked with the Department of Homeland Security to develop a groundbreaking training program. The centerpiece was a joint federal-local task force focused on protecting government officials in civilian settings. Martinez, following his suspension, was invited to become one of its first instructors, sharing his experience as a cautionary tale that would shape the next generation of law enforcement officers. The case against Marcus Reynolds, the man behind the false tips, reached its own resolution. Prosecutors charged him with multiple counts of filing false police reports and reckless endangerment. His trial became a landmark case in defining the legal boundaries of self-styled security consultants. The judge's ruling established clear precedent. Attempts to expose security weaknesses could not justify creating situations that endangered public safety or interfered with law enforcement operations. Perhaps the most significant long-term impact came through legislative channels. The incident prompted Congress to pass the Federal Official Protection Enhancement Act, which mandated improved communication systems between federal protective services and local law enforcement. The act also established new training requirements and created a national database of security protocols accessible to verified law enforcement personnel. Private sector organizations took notice as well. Luxury retailers along Rodeo Drive and similar high-end shopping districts across the country implemented their own changes. They developed discrete identification systems for VIP clients with security details and established direct lines of communication with local law enforcement. These changes helped prevent similar incidents while maintaining the privacy and dignity of high-profile shoppers. 1 year after the incident, Director Hayes returned to the same Bergdorf store, this time to participate in a low-key ceremony marking the implementation of the new security protocols. Officer Martinez, back on active duty and now an instructor in VIP protection protocols, was present. Their handshake, captured by a single approved photographer, became a powerful symbol of how a potentially catastrophic incident had been transformed into an opportunity for positive systematic change. The Rodeo Drive incident, as it became known in law enforcement circles, is now a standard case study at police academies and federal training facilities. It serves as a reminder that in the complex world of modern security, the best resolutions don't just fix immediate problems, they create lasting improvements that benefit everyone involved. 6 months later, the incident had faded from headlines, but its impact lingered. Officer Martinez returned to duty with a new perspective on the importance of measured responses. Director Hayes continued her work leading the CIA, though she now handled her personal shopping with additional precautions. The incident served as a reminder that in the complex world of modern security, communication and verification were just as important as rapid response.